Good adventures, everybody. This is Books Cubed, episode 9, and I'm Melissa Banczak, your host. And let's see. There are no comments from last week that were left on the YouTube site. So I had a couple people send me messages, but that doesn't really help. I mean, it does. It makes me happy, but can you please leave them on YouTube or in the future on the podcast? This has become a podcast too. So I will have a link to the podcast in the show notes if you want to be able to listen and drive or take walks or just not have to look at YouTube. I don't blame you. And the podcast version, I think I have the first 5 episodes up, and more will follow as I get the captions done. And I might have to put some up without the captions. I'm sorry about that. But I will get them up as quickly as I can. Let's see. So I know that sticky note sound, I shouldn't be pulling these off the wall because for the podcast, that's going to be really annoying. Let's see. What am I reading right now? I have a zillion books. I just took like 15 books off my nightstand and put them next to the bookshelf in my living room. And one of them that I'm reading that I took back is The Improbable Return of Coco Chanel, which is written by Richard Parker, who was her assistant in the 50s. So it's her triumphant return to New York in 1953, and I don't really know a lot about Coco Chanel. As you can see, I'm wearing a gray sweatshirt. I tend to wear t-shirt, I would tend to wear a lot of t-shirts, and I don't wear perfume. So I am learning a lot about fashion, and I keep having to stop the book to look up things that are happening in the world at that time period. So it's really interesting, and I will have a link to it in the show notes. I'm holding it up here for anybody who's on YouTube and probably blocking the audio. The Improbable Return of Coco Chanel by Richard Parker. It's not very long. It's a thin book, but so far it's good. Really interesting, and I will have the link in the show notes. So this time it's just me. I don't need to pull that off the wall. It's the only one I've got. This time it's just me, so I'm actually going to do a reading from How to Sex Your Snake. Okay, I'm going to read chapter 5 and a little bit of chapter 6. So let me give you just a little bit of what the book is about, just in case you don't know. So this is my product description on Amazon. A pool of blood, a missing body, a brother accused of murder. June Nash has the worst luck. June's got a pretty easy job as the personal assistant to her twin brother, star of the #1 nature show on TV. And then he's accused of murder, which sucks. Networks tend to fire first and ask questions later. And June doesn't want to lose her cushy assistant job or, see her twin end up in jail. When she stumbles onto a clue, she's forced to turn to the one person who can prove her brother's innocence, her arch nemesis. Just one problem. Somebody wants that guy dead. Now she's caught in a race against time as they navigate creepy crawlies, gangsters with a grudge, and deranged superfans. Can she get the evidence back in time to clear her brother's name? If she fails, it's the end of his career, and probably her life. So this is chapter 5 and a little bit of chapter 6. I slid my truck into a spot by the motel office and let the engine idle. The Cactus Rose Motel is your typical old-style motor lodge with a single strip of cheap rooms and a square concrete pool at the far end of the parking lot. Overhead, a giant neon green cactus with a vacancy sign fizzled on and off and cast everything in an eerie glow. At the end of the strip near the pool, I could just make out a housekeeping cart jammed in a half-open door at an angle. That was probably room 11. I shut off the truck and grabbed the bucket and tongs. The motel office was empty, so I headed for the cart. There were 2 lone cars in the parking lot, and as I passed the second one, I heard a lock click and a figure popped out. She was a little thing, maybe 5 feet and lost in a dark blue maid's uniform that doubled as an ugly muumuu. Her yellow-gloved hands clutched a spray bottle as if it offered some sort of protection against the world outside of her locked car. "Are you here for the snake?" she asked, eyeing the tongs. I wondered how often people checked in with props. Yeah, how big is it? Size would determine just how much of an effort I put into finding this thing. The maid pursed her lips and shivered a bit. Big. Okay, so one quick pass then. When we reached room 11, I set down the bucket and leaned the tongs against the wall. The cart was wedged in there pretty good. What would Dewey do first? Probably make sure he didn't run the snake over trying to clear the doorway. I pulled on a pair of leather gloves from the bucket and dropped to one knee. There was nothing around the wheels except scattered rolls of toilet paper and little bottles of shampoo. I stood and considered the vinyl bags that bookended the empty shelves. It certainly wouldn't be the first time I'd found something lurking in a laundry basket. When we were kids, Dewey was always bringing home creepy crawlies that proved to be expert escape artists. It was one of the reasons Mom insisted we find our own digs when we got back to town. I gave the cart a hard shake and jumped back. The maid squeaked and sprayed me with cleaner. Sorry, she said. I waved away a cloud of ammonia and gave her the look I usually throw at doozers who try to take my picture. Put it down. The bottle slid from her fingers and clattered on the concrete walkway. Now, you grab that side, I pointed at the cart, and I'll grab this side, and we're going to rock it. After about 20 seconds of wiggling, the cart sprang free, taking her side of the door frame with it. The maid started dancing around like she'd run over her foot. Are you okay? I asked. I broke the door, she whimpered. I picked up the strip of twisted metal in my gloved hands and tried to bend it straight. Maybe we can nail it back in. She stomped her feet. I'm too much of a freaking nice person, she declared loudly. Okay. Why she was throwing out personality traits was beyond me. I am, you know, she said, and then she kicked the housekeeping cart a couple of times. I tossed the metal strip from the door aside and reached for the tongs and their triple-coated, rubber-topped jaw that made them ideal for handling combative species. I'm going to go look inside for the snake, I said. She ignored me and turned her full attention and the heel of her right shoe on the poor cart's wheels. I crossed the threshold for room 11 and did a quick scan. If you ignored the carpet's wall-to-wall stains, it wasn't all that bad. A double bed took up most of the space. The rest was filled with a round table with a single chair in front of the window and a low, four-drawer dresser topped by one of those old TVs that was about 3 feet thick. Off to the right, I could see a toilet through the half-open door. I didn't spot a suitcase or any personal items, but that didn't mean the room was vacant. Checking in without luggage was probably standard practice for a place like this. Travel light and make a quick getaway. While I poked the tongs any place a snake might be hiding, I could hear the maid add one of my favorite four-letter words to her assault on the cart. I paused to enjoy the moment. In a way, it was therapeutic for me, too. I really missed saying it. When I finished my circuit, I realized I hadn't seen a trash can. I did a quick 360 and spotted one in the bathroom next to the toilet. It was small, but who knew just how big the snake really was? I leaned the tongs against the stall shower and dumped the contents of the trash into the sink. Nothing wriggled up out of the tissues and fast food wrappers. I think it's gone, I yelled over my shoulder. The cursing outside stopped. A moment later, a childlike voice squeaked behind me. Really? I nodded and smiled at the maid's reflection in the mirror above the sink, glad to see her freakout was over. Really, I said. And then the scream started all over again. I followed her line of sight and looked up. A white snake was draped across the light fixture above me. The maid's use of the word big had been an understatement. Its midsection, thicker than my arm, sagged between each of the 3 bulbs, and its face was suspended mere inches above mine. A forked pink tongue flicked in and out as the snake decided its true interest in me. Blast. Chapter 6. A snake can only strike if it's coiled. Wait, was that true or was that an old wives' tale? I tried to imagine Dewey saying it. A snake can only strike if it's coiled. Instead, all I could hear was, read my books, June. Watch my show, June. Get eaten by a snake trying to cover for me, June. I hated my life. The snake flicked his tongue at me. Same to you, I whispered. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see the tongs where I'd propped them against the shower. A fat lot of good they'd do me way over there. Oh, who was I kidding? Even if I could reach them, my tong-using skills were limited to rescuing fallen socks from behind the washer and dryer. My only hope was to get out of there and lock the giant snake in until reinforcements arrived. Back up, 1 foot behind the other, no sudden movements. I reached for the bathroom door behind me and slammed my funny bone into the knob. A lightning bolt of pain shot up my arm, and I made a whole lot of sudden movements. The snake took all this the wrong way and lunged. Before I could scream, the stressed light fixture ripped from the wall, and the scaly monster was flung at me. I threw up my hands to shield my face and somehow caught the snake instead. He was heavier than he looked, and I collapsed. My knees hit the tile floor with a loud crack, and I cried out as I fell to my side, pinned under the weight. For a moment, we both lay still, stunned from the shock of the fall. Coiled to strike was a wives' tale after all. I decided that if I told Dewey about this later, I'd say I caught the snake on purpose. Black boots filled my angled view of the open doorway, and I looked up. It was Leather Girl. She'd lost the ripped windbreaker, but was still decked out in the black leather ensemble, and for some reason, she was holding a snake of her own. No, it wasn't a snake. It was a garden hose, capped by one of those spray nozzles, and it was pointed right at me. "Wait, don't!" And then Leather Girl twisted the end, and a cannon of water shot me across the tile floor. My head smacked into the corner of the stall shower, and the tongs fell across my lap. "Why'd you do that?" I yelled. "It was attacking you," she yelled back. Not my version of the story. It fell. I caught it. I held up empty hands. Blast. Where's the snake? Hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like to know what happens next, you can pick up a copy on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. And that's it for this week. If you live in the United States, I hope you're having a lovely Thanksgiving. And if you're elsewhere in the world, I hope that you're not having to work today. But don't worry, the weekend is coming up soon. Next week on the show, I have got Heather Christie, who wrote a multi-award-winning book, What the Valley Knows. Deals with a serious subject matter, and it's a really good book. So I highly recommend that. So tune in next week. And in the meantime, go read a good book.